Chapter 5. See you around, you said. We both knew that wasn't true. Why not just say goodbye instead? I guess you didn't want me to feel blue. Wake up. Now you really need to wake up. Agneta shook Jenny's shoulder hard, for the second time this morning. Jenny mumbled and turned the other way. It's past 8 o'clock, get up! Jenny just pulled the duvet over her head. Agneta yanked it off. With a deep sigh, Jenny sat up, putting her bare feet on the floor. Agneta laughed at her just out of bed face with mascara smeared under her eyes and her long hair in a mess. What? You look pretty bad, you know. What did you do last night? When I fell asleep at 2, you hadn't come back yet. Jenny moved her hand vaguely, too tired to talk. Come on, hurry up. We're leaving in like 10 minutes. I suggest you wash yesterday's makeup off before we meet the rest of the class. But later on, you have to tell me everything, every single detail. She got up and slowly put on her pants. At 9:30, when the class teacher Kristina was checking if everyone was present, Jenny and Agneta joined the others. Jenny still looked half asleep, even though she had washed her face in ice-cold water and gathered her hair in a ponytail that stretched all the way to her waist. She saw the curious looks her classmates gave her, but was too tired to care about their speculations. Yesterday seemed far away, and she had a hard time understanding how she could have felt so happy and in love. Today, there was just tiredness left. If it hadn't been for Agneta's eager questions, Jenny would have fallen asleep standing up during the guided tour. Come on, tell me, what did you do after you left the club? Jenny shrugged, still tired. We went to a pub, walked through the city, talked. Yeah, right. Cecilia, the most popular girl in the class, interrupted their conversation. Jenny looked at her, surprised. Normally, Cecilia wouldn't deign them with her presence. Now she stood there, chewing gum and talking to them. What do you mean? Oh, come on. Of course you didn't just talk all night. I saw you. I saw him. A guy like that doesn't just... She made air quotes with her ring-clad fingers. Talk all night. Jenny looked firmly at Cecilia and retorted that just because the only thing a guy would want to do with her was to have sex, didn't mean a guy like that couldn't enjoy talking to Jenny. The second after, Agneta saw something she had never seen before. Cecilia forgetting to look sexy. Her mouth fell open and the chewing gum fell on the floor. She stared at Jenny, unable to grasp that the swot had dared to talk back. As the class moved into the next hall, she went back to her usual group of friends. Jenny smiled slightly when she bent down to pick up the chewing gum. She tossed it in a trash bin. What Cecilia would not be able to understand was that Jenny didn't care if Mr. Handsome was with another girl tonight, as long as he didn't play billiards or walk through half of Stockholm or talk about anything and everything with her. What's his name? Agneta whispered. Jenny knitted her eyebrows together. For some strange reason she couldn't remember. She didn't have a clue. I don't know. What? Yeah, well, no, I don't know. I guess I never asked him. Do you know how old he is? She shook her head. Where does he live? Finally, a question she could answer. In the world. And he doesn't like the boredom of everyday life, and his eyes, they shine like a blue sun. Agneta suddenly looked past her towards the entrance to the room. Isn't that... Nah, it can't be, but it looks similar. Or maybe it is him. Look over there. All Jenny could see was a well-combed man in a green suit with a matching tie and a black briefcase. Looks like who? Just as the question left her lips, she saw who it was. He walked towards her with floating, soft movements. I'm so pleased you had the opportunity to come here, Jenny. Now the museum director can finally meet you. He took her hand and shook it in a fatherly manner. She was so impressed with your essay. Kristina looked closely at this encounter. Jenny just stared at Mr. Handsome. Was this really the same guy she had had so much fun with yesterday? You're Jenny's teacher, I suppose. He turned to Kristina with a dazzling smile. Yes, that's right. Maybe you're the one who inspired her to write the essay. Kristina was silent for a few seconds before answering the polite young man. Well, yes, I hope so. Jenny has always been a talented student. As her teacher, I do what I can to support her ambitions. He talked to the class teacher for a long while, charming as always, but not really saying anything that made sense. Jenny listened carefully, trying to understand where he was going with this. So, I hope you don't mind if I bring Jenny to my manager. She would very much like to talk to her about art in 17th century France that Jenny wrote about in such an inspiring, interesting way. Well, of course, please do. That goes without saying. Christina turned to her favorite student. Just make sure you arrive on time for the train home. Good luck, dear. When Jenny heard the pride in her teacher's voice, her cheeks turned red and warm as if she had been the one lying. He offered her his arm, and slowly they walked towards the exit. As soon as they were outside of the museum, he stopped and looked at her. You didn't want to stay there, right? She shook her head, but the way she looked down made him confused. Are you sure you didn't want to stay in there? No, you're so different today. When you're dressed like that, I feel as if I don't know you. Ah, I see. So you know me, apart from the clothes. When he looked at her with one eyebrow lifted and his head cocked to the side, the warm feeling from yesterday came back. It felt as if they were still sitting on the bench by the water, watching the sunrise. Well, maybe I don't know you well, but I know the jeans-wearing guy better than the suit-clad snob. I guessed your teacher wouldn't let you go off with the denim type, so I changed style. Otherwise, I would have to eat lunch all alone today. Chinese food okay with you? She smiled and said that Chinese food would be just fine. To her surprise, they didn't go to a Chinese restaurant but to an Asian food store. Are you going to cook? Did you think I was just a dumb blonde? I have more qualities than you think. Blonde. Mr. Blonde. What? You're not a blonde, you're Mr. Blonde, with a license to chill. He laughed. Gothenburger, always playing with words. After he had purchased what he wanted, they went out into the sunshine again. Jenny had bought the daily newspaper Dagens Nyheter and was browsing through it while they were talking. By the way, did you know I write, or was that just a lucky shot? Huh? When you told Christina, my teacher, that I had written an essay, did you just make that up? Yeah, was I close? I've not written about 17th century art in France. I don't even know if anything special happened from an art perspective in France then, but I write. I'm going to study journalism. He whistled. Wow, doesn't that require really good grades? She shrugged. It's not as difficult as it used to be, but sure, good grades help. Why? Well, I just thought, you thought I was a dumb blonde. Jenny laughed and shook her head, swishing her long ponytail back and forth. He leaned forward and gave her a quick kiss, still happy he had decided to dance with her last night. Come on, let's take the subway from here. They got off the subway at Hötorget and walked to Olofsgatan. They entered a gate to a stately yellow brick house. After going up 2 flights of stairs, he pulled out his keys to unlock the door. She glanced at the sign, Andersson. It reminded her that she still didn't know his name. When they were in the hallway, taking off their shoes, which we do in Sweden, she said, "You know what? I just realized I don't know your name." No, we never talked about that. We just talked about interesting, unusual things. I get bored with usual cliches. What's your name? Where do you come from? Do you come here often? She continued, laughing. Yeah, I like that about you, that you didn't say any of these things. Make yourself at home while I get started with the food. Need help? If I do, I'll let you know. The first thing she did was to put on music. To her, a world without music was an empty world. She didn't want to touch his record collection, so she turned on the radio. Then she looked around. What she saw surprised her. The floor was decorated in pink tones with many neat vases placed on small tables and pedestals. The sofa was wide with floral patterns. Also the next room, a study, was somehow overly cute. What would his bedroom look like? Would it be as girly as the rest of the apartment? A 4-poster bed in pink and baby blue, maybe? But looking into his bedroom would be rude, wouldn't it? Too nosy. After all, she barely knew him. The sounds of cooking reached her from the kitchen. He was frying something and he was whistling. Well, he said I could make myself at home. She walked towards the closed door that she assumed led to the bedroom. Quietly, almost sneakily, she opened it. It felt like she was breaking some unwritten rule. The bed dominated the whole room. It was a large double bed with wooden frames, located in the middle of the room. He had not made it. The duvet was flung to one side, and she could see imprints of his body on the side where he had slept. On a chair lay the clothes he had worn yesterday, the jeans and shirt flung over the backrest. On the bedside table was a book by David Baldacci. I didn't bother making the bed this morning. Startled, she turned around. Redness spread across her face. If he found her behavior inappropriate, he didn't show it. Do you want beer with your food? Beer and this dish go well together. Only if you give me low-alcohol beer today and don't drink me under the table like you did yesterday. He laughed. Why not? You were funny. So I'm boring when I'm sober? He suddenly turned uncharacteristically serious. No, you're anything but boring. He held on to her eyes so long it made her nervous. Can I help? Set the table or something? Sure, food will be ready in a few minutes. Jeez, his eyes are dangerous. She was relieved she would take the train in the afternoon and not spend the night here with a gigantic double bed and Mr. Handsome's beautiful blue eyes. She took 2 plates from a cupboard and could not help but mumble when she saw teacups decorated with half-naked men. He followed her gaze. Those are Anna-Lisa's, if you're wondering. He served the rice into a bowl. Suddenly she was unable to move. She just froze with the plates in her hands. If she was wondering? Now she was really beginning to wonder. Who was Anna-Lisa? He must have let her decorate the apartment. She couldn't believe he liked the overly cute decor. They surely lived together. If so, where was she now? Where had she been yesterday? And what did she think about Jenny being here? They sat down at the table and she asked, as indifferently as she could, what does Anna-Lisa think about me being in your apartment? For the first time she saw an annoyed frown on his face. It's her apartment. His voice was short. I borrow it when I'm in Stockholm unless she needs it. Of course, when I live here, I take whoever I want here. Where's your own apartment then? She took a bite of the exotic-looking food. I don't have one. I don't like being stuck, remember? He saw the look on her face after she had taken a bite of his food. When I was in China, I got used to how authentic Chinese food there tastes. I've probably gotten used to their spices. Have some more rice with it. Then it'll probably taste better. She did as he proposed, and it did indeed taste a lot better then. So, you've been to China? Yes, for 5 months. A wonderful experience. Me, my camera, and my backpack. You have no apartment, you like to travel. But you must have a home somewhere. Wherever I lay my hat. Poor young, Jenny thought automatically. But don't you get tired of always being on the move? No, quite the opposite. If I stay too long, I get bored. All the obligations, same place, same people. That's just not for me. How can you afford to travel all the time? It hasn't always been comfortable trips. In the beginning, I would sleep on people's sofa. Did small chores to get some food. But to be honest, my life is pretty luxurious nowadays. How come? Thanks to Anna-Lisa. This time she didn't say anything, but she couldn't help but wonder if the hottie was a gigolo to a lady with poor taste in interior design. She discovered me. I prefer being behind the camera, but I make more money in front of it. Are you a photo model? You make it sound as if I should be ashamed of it. Huh? No, I didn't mean it that way. I just didn't expect it. You don't think I look good enough? Sure you do. I just didn't expect a model would be so nice to talk to. You're not the only one who thinks all models are empty-headed Barbie dolls. That can be said about some of my colleagues, but far from all of them. Many models are students who want to make some money doing a part-time job. He ate the last of his food. For me, it's perfect. Irregular, lots of traveling, enough money, and I get to meet a lot of different people. He paused for a moment and looked at this girl who seemed to emit light, sitting opposite him, enjoying his food. Sometimes I'm lucky. He put his hand on her arm. Sometimes I meet a girl from Gothenburg who can walk through Stockholm a whole night without getting tired or bored. She met his eyes and smiled at him. His hand on her arm felt warm and, like yesterday, her earlobes became warm. God, what's wrong with me? She pulled her arm away. Can I have some more? He nodded and put more on her plate. You're in secondary school now, right? She nodded. Natural sciences, 2nd year. What do you do when you're not studying? Do you actually do anything else? If you want to go to journalism school, you must study a lot, right? At times. It is completely crazy at times, but I have time to sing. In a choir? No, in a band. Nothing special, there are just 5 of us doing music together. We mostly play covers. Other people's songs. Yeah. Only one of us, Keivan, writes songs. Sometimes we have no gigs, sometimes we have lots. We usually play at parties in school. Jenny, you know what? She swallowed the last bite, looked at him and shook her head. I'd love to get to know you better. She glanced at her watch. Well, we have a couple of hours. And I already know you're a good cook. They had tea in the living room. She sat on the couch and Peter put on a Chopin CD. She looked at him as he walked around the room, long and slender, but still soft in some way. She slowly sipped her tea. As he sat down next to her on the sofa, she felt a faint scent of shaving lotion. It reminded her that she wasn't wearing perfume or makeup. She had been far too tired this morning. Now that she was sitting on the sofa, drinking hot tea and listening to soft music, she felt how tired she really was. She stifled a yawn, but he noticed it anyway. You didn't sleep much last night, he noted. It doesn't matter, I can sleep on the train home. Which school do you go to? Burgården. The one close to Scandinavia? Yeah, that's the one. So you know Gothenburg well. Fairly well. I like the atmosphere. It's like a big town rather than a small city. How do you shave there? She pointed at the dimple in his chin. He looked at her in surprise, then laughed out loud. I thought you only said these kind of things when you were drunk. I do it like this. He opened his mouth and wrapped his lower lip around the teeth, so the chin stretched out and the dimple disappeared. That's amazing. She looked closely at the phenomenon, suppressing a sudden desire to touch his face. Peter could not stop smiling. Now it's my turn. He leaned forward, put his arms around her shoulders and loosened her barrette. Jenny's long blonde hair fell to the sides. He let his fingers slide over it and spread it over her shoulders. Her hair was waist-long and felt so soft on his fingers. She held her breath as he touched her. He leaned back and attentively looked at her. For some reason she felt unprotected, undressed. Just like a fairy, he said quietly. The phone rang. Even though Peter didn't get up and the phone soon stopped ringing, the mood was broken. She glanced at her watch. It's 3 o'clock. I have to go now to catch the train at 4, right? On the way to the central station, they chattered about Stockholm, about the weather. It was a fruitless attempt to slow down time. But time was relentless, as it always is, passing by at its own pace. At 3:45, they stood outside the station. You don't have to come with me and a father. I'll find the train myself. Anyway, it's probably not good if I come along with you. Then your teacher will wonder. She grimaced. Oh yeah, right. I hope she won't ask too much about that essay and the museum director. I put you in a tough spot, didn't I? It doesn't matter. It was worth it. He nodded, knowing she meant it. Then he took her face between his hands and kissed her tenderly. See you, he said, as they released each other. She nodded, knew it was just a phrase, a way to smooth the hard edges of goodbye. She didn't turn around when she walked away. That would have seemed so melodramatic.